In this video we will show you how to take care of your lovely carbon steel knives using relatively basic things you have at home. It is surprisingly very simple to do and will keep your knives looking amazing all the time.
I think this video is probably made for people who are kind of interested in knives. You know, they're keen chefs, amateur cooks, people who use a knife daily. You know, there's not a lot of people would care what kind of knife they use. Some people find it very, very weird that you've got a sharp knife at all. I mean, I know my aunt, for instance, is like, she'll come around and be like, oh, your knives are too sharp. And I know that there's a whole cross section of people that think that a sharp knife is very dangerous, but actually a sharp knife is probably safer, and it's better for your food, and it's just a better thing because a knife is supposed to be sharp. There's varying degrees of sharpness within that. There's a functional sharpness with knives, and then there's razor blade sharpness. There's a freshly maintained knife, and then there's the way that edge will sort of like hold as you use it. Now there's different names for it. People have, there's a whole bunch of different Japanese names for the way an edge feels. You have toothy edge, and these edges all like lend themselves to different things in different ways. So some edges would be good for proteins and fish and meat. Other edges would be good for vegetables. Some edges would be good for doing sushi. Some edges would be good for cured fish. Some edges would be good for fresh fish. There's a real rabbit hole of sharpening and maintenance for knives that, you know, they don't tell you when you go and buy your really fancy, you know, brand new Japanese knife, which cost you like 400 quid because it's really beautiful and it's got a lovely forged finish on it and it's polished nicely and it will shave your arm, and that's great. But that same knife probably doesn't want to be used for boning out beef, like, you know, a rib of beef or something like that, or scraping like sinew off of lamb racks. And they will probably tell you, don't hit this knife against bones and don't use it on a glass chopping board. And there's a whole bunch of stuff that people ask me and people don't know about that I thought I'd have a little chat about with you today, because Vince has asked me to, basically. What we're going to talk about. Scenario number one. Right, so this scenario is, you've got yourself a lovely, nice new, you know, you're feeling flush, you've gone and got yourself a nice new Japanese knife from a shop, whichever shop you go to. You bought it online, you've been drinking and you fancy, you know, you see something on the Tinterweb and you're like, oh, that looks lovely, it's only 400 quid and comes with a tea bag and a lovely little thank you note, and it's great and it's shiny. You go and make yourself a gin and tonic, cut up some lemons, leave it on the chopping board, and go and sit in the garden and drink your gin and tonic, chuffed with your new knife. 20 minutes later, you go back inside and you look at your knife and you're like, oh shit, it's got rust all over it. Like, what have I done? And what you've done is you've let it go rusty, basically. So there's ways to avoid that. One of them is don't let it go rusty. Now, like, there's basic things that you can do, which is one of, like I say, the best thing to stop rust, or the best way to deal with rust is not to let it rust. So if you can keep it dry and clean, then it won't rust. If it does rust, there's ways of dealing with that. So most of those things are forms of polish, so they're kind of abrasives, some of which you can have at hand and some of which are a little bit more professional, or like, you know, the makers tend to have them. So I thought I'd go through a couple of things that you might have in your kitchen anyway. Number one, a sponge scouring pad. So if you use the green side of a scouring pad, you can actually remove rust and patina fairly easily and fairly quickly just using that and a little bit of water and soap. Now, that might sound ridiculous, it might sound completely like common sense, but that will just scrub off the rust. Now, the longer you've had that bit of steel rusting, the deeper the rust's gone, the deeper the rust will be. So you might need to be a little bit more aggressive or a little bit more forceful trying to remove that rust. So when it steps up, if it's not coming off with the green scourer, I recommend a good old-fashioned Brillo pad. These things have got soap in them. It's basically wire wool with soap. Now, if you've got a ridiculously high-end knife, so this one's got a very, very fancy stone polish on. So that's another level of finish. Now, if I started to rub a Brillo pad on this one, I'd probably be a bit sad because I'm going to start scratching the cladding, which I've spent hours polishing. However, that's because that's got soft cladding on it. This has got soft cladding on it. This doesn't have soft cladding. So if I was going to take a Brillo pad to a bit of a carbon steel knife, a plain carbon steel knife, I wouldn't worry too much about scratching it because the steel in the knife is going to be harder than the wire wool. And if you've got a uniform scratchiness or a uniform light scratch pattern on your cladding, that's better than shitloads of rust, basically. So when it comes to it, a Brillo pad is an absolutely amazing solution to get off rust. Then you've got other things like, you've got stuff like metal polish. So I don't know if you've ever seen Auto Sol. This is basically a paste which has got an abrasive grit in it. So if I was going to use this, which is a fine paste, so it's not going to do an awful lot, I would just pop a little bit of that on there. Use either a J-cloth or a bit of kitchen roll, or you can use the soft side of your sponge, which again, are all things you've probably got in the kitchen, and you just rub it over there. And that's going to remove patina, which is basically oxides and stuff. I'll talk a bit more about patina in a minute. And it's going to give your knife a fresh finish again. So you can actually see that's changed quite a lot just from a little rub over. And you can see this black stuff that's on the paper. That's the layers, that's a little bit of steel coming off and a little bit of that finish coming off. But now that looks practically new, which is great because, you know, you want to look after your expensive, nice handmade knives. But what you don't want to be worried about, you don't want to be fearful of cleaning them. So if you want to take the rust off, take the rust off. If you want to take the patina off, take the patina off. If you don't like the patina, get rid of it. One more way of cleaning off rust, I'm just going to nip over and grab my whetstone. So you've been rubbing this on here and you've been sharpening. What you end up with is slurry. So with the abrasive, this is slurry down here. So this is basically just abrasive bound up in stone. Bound up in water, sorry, from the stone. So that's one way of getting your edge back, which again is not what I'm talking about right now. So the way to use that as a polish is you get your J-cloth, which you keep with your whetstone. So J-cloth, whetstone, fold it over a few times. In catering we call this a Wilson, or in catering I used to call this a Wilson. I don't know if everyone else calls it a Wilson, but it is a Wilson. But what I'm going to do now is I'm going to use it as a polish. So but what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick up the slurry off the whetstone like this. So that now is a polishing pad. So this is a 1000 grit King whetstone. So as you do this, you're doing exactly the same thing as you're doing with the polishing paste. And you're just removing, you're using it as a light abrasive to remove any patina or any rust that's on the blade. Not that it's going to be there. Again, the deeper it goes, the more aggressive you have to be. But that's an amazing little hack for cleaning your knives up. That I can't remember where I learnt it, but wherever I did learn it, thank you, that person. One more little good trick for getting rid of rust and getting rid of patina, good old-fashioned bicarbonate of soda. You can't go wrong with a bit of bicarb. Food safe, neutralizes acids, does all the good things. You want to just get, I haven't got any water here at the moment, I'm going to dip that in my coffee. So that, a little bit of bicarbonate of soda, use that as an abrasive. I'll do it on this knife for a change. So that, it's not a severe abrasive, but it's probably enough an abrasive to get rid of patina or rust. The thing with Kurochi knives or knives with the forged finishes, you want to try and avoid polishing the forged finish because you can actually strip that off using these methods. So you just want to polish the bevel and not worry about polishing the rest. And there you are, so that's been polished out a little bit.
Thank you to our sponsors today. We have Multi-Tool Products Europe, who do the 84 engineering belt grinders, Clark Knives, who are a 3-generation family-run business for heat treatment in Damascus, and GFS Knife Supplies. They have lightning fast deliveries and ships worldwide. Fastest deliveries for all types of steel, stocks the Cubitron 2 Trizac, surface conditioning, and the biggest range of abrasive belts, rock blade heat kilns that are available in finance, heat treatment, quenching oils, and every material you'll need for your handle, including pins, stabilized wood, G10 material, and many more. Please click the links in the description as they help us in making more videos like these.
Again, to stop it going rusty instantly, again, dry your knife before you put it away. And that's basically how I would avoid rust in a kitchen. There's like a whole bunch of domestic kind of products you can use. One sharpening stone, and that'll keep your knife looking clean and fresh and brand new for a long, long time.
Do you have any other tips you follow to take care of your carbon steel knife? Please share it in the comments below. Please don't forget to hit the like button if you feel this video was helpful, and subscribe to our channel if you fancy watching more videos about knife making, bladesmithing and knife maintenance.